My family dumped me in a group home at 12 and forgot I existed. Years later I became rich. Now they want me back like nothing happened, but I'm not the same kid anymore. I was 20 when my life ended, at least that's how it felt, because one day I had a bed, a family, and a roof, and the next I was standing outside a government building with a plastic bag and no one beside me, no goodbye, no tears, just silence, as if I had never mattered, like I was a burden they were finally free of, and all I remember is staring at the concrete under my shoes, wondering what I did to deserve being thrown away like garbage. It wasn't a dramatic fight, there wasn't a final meltdown, just cold detachment, like I was an object being returned, and my parents said they couldn't handle me anymore, but never explained why, and my siblings barely looked at me as I packed what little I had into a trash bag, not a suitcase, not a backpack, just a black bag, like I was moving out of their lives for good and no one cared. The group home wasn't like in the movies, there were no warm moments, no friendships, just survival, just locked doors, plastic mattresses, shared bathrooms, strict schedules, and a lingering sense that you were unwanted, forgotten, like society's leftovers, and every night I stared at the ceiling pretending I was somewhere else, with someone who actually gave a damn about me. Birthdays came and went and no one called, Christmas was just another cold day with stale food and fake smiles from underpaid staff, and I stopped counting the days because the calendar didn't matter anymore. Time didn't exist in a place where you're nobody, where your past is erased and your future doesn't matter because you're just another broken kid in a system. But something in me refused to give up, not because I believed in miracles, but because I wanted to prove them wrong, every single one of them who thought I'd fail, who thought I'd end up in jail or dead, who never believed I could be more than a number in a file, and I promised myself that one day I'd crawl out of this hell and never look back. There was no rescue, no mentor, no secret relative who showed up out of nowhere with open arms and warm hugs, just me waking up every morning in that cramped group home, dragging myself through cold showers and tasteless meals, pretending I was okay while the staff barely remembered my name, and the other kids fought for scraps of attention like wild animals in a cage. I kept my head down, stayed out of trouble, learned how to disappear into the background, because being invisible was safer than being a target, and I stopped hoping someone would come back for me, because hope was dangerous, hope made the silence hurt more, so I buried it deep and told myself I didn't care. I spent most days in the corner of the public library, reading whatever I could, not because I was a genius, but because it was warm and quiet, and no one asked questions, and slowly, without realizing it, I started teaching myself things I never learned in school, because the system didn't care if I passed or failed, and most teachers stopped trying after they saw the address on my file. I got my first job at 15, scraping grease off kitchen floors and taking verbal abuse from managers who didn't care how old I was, as long as I didn't talk back and didn't take breaks. I saved every dollar, hid cash under my mattress, bought used clothes from donation bins, and lied about where I lived because saying group home always changed the way people looked at me. By 18, I was legally free. No one clapped, no one gave me advice, no support or celebration, just a stack of papers and a good luck from a woman who didn't even look me in the eye. But I didn't cry. I didn't feel anything. I just walked out with a bag of clothes and a fire inside me that refused to die. I found a job washing cars, then fixing them, then flipping them for profit, and when I wasn't working, I was learning YouTube, forums, free courses, anything that would get me out of that hole and into something better, and I didn't care how long it would take, because I had already survived the worst part. And all this time, my family never called. Not once. I started making real money around 19, not millions, but enough to live on my own, eat real food, and finally sleep without worrying who'd bang on my door at 3 a.m., and I remember the first time I walked into a dealership and paid cash for a used car, not flashy, just reliable, and the salesman looked at me like I was either lucky or dangerous, and honestly, I was both. I didn't post online, didn't brag, didn't tell anyone where I lived or what I was doing, because after growing up unwanted, privacy became my armor, and I didn't owe anyone explanations. But I kept building, slowly, methodically, flipping cars, picking up side gigs, studying investments, and by 20 I had enough saved to not just survive but grow. And that's exactly when they found me. At first it was a DM from one of my cousins, some vague, "Hey, been a long time, how've you been?" and I ignored it, because I knew it wasn't real. Then came the friend request from my sister, the one who hadn't spoken to me since I left. Then my mom emailed me. She said she missed me. She said she was proud. She said they were always thinking about me. I read that message 10 times. Not because I believed it, but because it made my stomach turn. Where were they when I was cold and hungry? Where were they when I had no bed, no support, no one to tell me I mattered? Now they missed me. Now they were proud. No. They weren't proud of me. They were proud of the money. A few weeks later, I got an invitation to a family dinner. We'd love to reconnect, it said. I almost laughed out loud. I hadn't seen these people in 8 years, and suddenly I was worthy of a chair at their table. I didn't reply. But I kept the invitation. Because I wasn't done yet. I didn't tell them I was coming. I just showed up. The house looked the same, but smaller somehow. Like the memories had made it bigger than it really was. I parked across the street in a car I bought with my own cash, not new, but clean, polished, and paid in full. I sat there for a minute, hands on the wheel, staring at that front door, remembering how many times I had stood behind it, afraid to knock. Now I walked straight up and rang the bell. My mom opened the door. She looked older, but not just in her face, in her eyes. Like life had drained something from her. For a second, she didn't recognize me. Then her eyes widened and she pulled me into a hug, too fast, too tight, too fake. "Oh my God," she whispered, "you look grown." I didn't hug her back. The living room was full. People I hadn't seen in almost a decade. My sister, who once told me to disappear. My brother, who laughed when I cried. My cousins, who looked at me like a stranger they needed something from. The air was thick with tension masked as politeness. Everyone acted surprised, but I knew they expected me. They thought I'd come back with gratitude in my eyes, desperate to be accepted again. They didn't realize I had come to see if they were still as hollow as I remembered. Dinner was awkward. Small talk, forced smiles, fake laughter. They asked what I'd been doing. Where I lived. If I had done something with myself. I gave them nothing. Just short answers and long stares. And then came the real reason I was invited. My mom cleared her throat and started talking about how hard things had been lately. How the house needed repairs. How medical bills were piling up. How they hated to ask, but maybe I could help. There it was. Not, "We missed you." Not, "We're sorry." Not, "We were wrong." Just a hand reaching out, not for me, for my wallet. I looked at them. All of them. And I realized I didn't feel anger anymore. Just clarity. Cold, quiet clarity. These weren't my people. They never were. I didn't yell. I didn't make a scene. I just let the silence stretch, watching the hope fade from their faces like smoke from a dying fire, and in that silence, they started to squirm, shifting in their seats, pretending to sip from empty glasses, glancing at one another like someone else might say what needed to be said. But no one did. They were waiting for me to break the silence with a generous offer, to prove that I had turned out to be a good person, someone kind, forgiving, easy to use again. They wanted a clean redemption arc. A family reunion they could brag about. What they got was reality. I reached into my jacket, pulled out the envelope they had mailed the invitation in, and placed it on the table. No money. Just the same empty paper that once begged for reconnection. Then I stood up. "I'm not here to fix your life," I said quietly. "I'm here to confirm I don't need any of you in mine." My mom's eyes filled with tears, but I had seen those before. Crocodile tears. Too late. My sister opened her mouth to speak, but I didn't care what she had to say. My brother looked like he wanted to argue, but he had no ground left to stand on. I didn't owe them a single word more. So I walked out. No hugs. No photos. No goodbyes. Just me, the night, and the satisfaction of finally closing the door they slammed in my face years ago. The drive home felt like freedom. For the first time in years, I wasn't carrying their weight, their guilt, their shame. It was like breathing after being underwater for too long. I got home, kicked off my shoes, made a cheap dinner, sat on the couch, and felt peace. Not happiness. But peace. A quiet kind that comes when you finally accept the truth: you were never the broken one. They were. I started sleeping better. Working harder. Thinking clearer. I doubled down on my side hustle, found a small apartment in a better neighborhood, and finally let myself smile at the life I had built not out of luck, but out of grit. Then, 2 weeks later, I got the call. It was a number I didn't recognize. I let it ring. No voicemail. A few hours later, same number. This time, I picked up. It was my aunt. I hadn't heard her voice since I was a kid. She never reached out, never sent a birthday card, never once visited the group home. But now her voice was trembling. She said my mom was in the hospital. She said it was serious. She said the family was falling apart and that you're the only one who can bring everyone together. I stood there, phone to my ear, listening to a woman I barely remembered talk like I was some kind of savior. Like I was the missing puzzle piece. Like after all this time, they needed me. And all I could think was, why now? Why only when things fall apart do they remember my name? I didn't answer her right away. I just stood there, phone in hand, staring out the window like the city might give me the answer I didn't want to admit I was looking for. Part of me wanted to hang up, block the number, and move on like none of this ever happened. But another part, the part that still remembered sleeping on cold mattresses and hearing my mom's voice only in dreams, needed closure. So I said nothing. Just asked what hospital. She told me. I wrote it down. And 2 days later, I showed up. Not with flowers. Not with tears. Just with eyes wide open. The hospital smelled like bleach and old fear. I walked through those halls like a ghost, like I'd been there before in another life, and maybe the old me had died somewhere along the way, and this version of me was just here to visit the scene of the crime. Her room was quiet. Machines beeped softly. She looked small, like life had shrunk her. Pale. Tired. Nothing like the woman who once told me to pack my things and find somewhere else to be. She opened her eyes. And when she saw me, she didn't cry. She smiled. That fake, shaky smile she always used when she needed something. "Look at you," she whispered. "You made it." But I didn't smile back. I just sat down. Not out of love. Not out of hate. Just to look her in the eyes one more time, not as her son, but as the man she left behind. She looked at me for a long time before speaking again. Maybe she was trying to find the right words, or maybe she was just stalling, hoping I'd speak first. I didn't. I let the silence do the talking. Eventually, she broke. "I was scared," she said quietly. "We didn't know what to do with you. You were different. And it felt easier to let go." I stared at her. Easier to let go. Like I was a bag of trash. Like I was something broken to throw away, not someone worth fighting for. And now, after all the years, after the group home, after the nights I cried myself to sleep wondering what I did wrong, she admits it was just easier. She reached for my hand. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Those 2 words. I used to dream about them. I imagined them in 100 different ways. Screamed, sobbed, written in letters, carved into stone. But now, hearing them here, weak and soft and too late, they didn't hit the way I thought they would. Because she wasn't apologizing to heal me. She was apologizing to ease herself. To die lighter. I pulled my hand away. I forgave you, I said. A long time ago. But not for you. For me. She blinked. Shocked. Maybe even hurt. But I wasn't there to patch old wounds. I was there to bury them. I stood up. She tried to speak again, but I was already at the door. No more second chances, I said. We both made peace. Just not the same kind. And I walked out. For the last time. A week passed. I didn't tell anyone I went to the hospital. I didn't answer any follow-up calls. I deleted every message from extended family. I buried the past, this time for real. No pain. No regret. Just silence. Then I got a letter. An actual envelope. No return address. Inside was a folded piece of paper, written in careful handwriting I hadn't seen in years. It was from my aunt. But not the one who called. A different one. My dad's sister. She had been quiet all those years. I barely remembered her. She was the only one who didn't say anything when they sent me away. And now, after all this time, she wrote me. She said she never agreed with what they did. That she wanted to take me in, but they told her not to. That she kept tabs on me from afar, watching from a distance, afraid to interfere, afraid she'd make it worse. But she knew I was out there. And she was proud. She said I didn't owe them anything. But if I ever wanted to know more about what really happened back then, why my parents truly gave up, what secrets were buried in the cracks of our family, she could tell me. Only if I was ready. At the bottom of the letter, she left a phone number. And for the first time in a long time I didn't know what to do. I stared at the letter for hours. Not because I didn't believe it, but because a part of me had already moved on. I had built a life from ashes. I had found strength in being alone. And now, after everything, someone was offering answers. Real answers. But did I want them? I folded the letter and slid it into a drawer. I told myself I didn't need it. That the truth wouldn't change anything. That knowing why they threw me away wouldn't undo the years I spent picking myself up. That closure wasn't always something you were supposed to get sometimes, silence had to be enough. But I couldn't sleep. 3 days later, I called the number. She picked up right away. And for the next 2 hours, I listened. I didn't interrupt. I didn't cry. I just listened. She told me things I wasn't ready to hear about: debts, family shame, betrayals that ran deeper than I imagined. About how I wasn't given up because I was broken. But because I was a threat to the lies they built. They had chosen their reputation over me. Their comfort over truth. And in doing so, they lost the only honest person in the family. When the call ended, I didn't feel pain. I felt weightless. Because the past finally made sense. And it didn't control me anymore. I walked to the mirror, looked at myself, and for the first time, didn't see a victim. I saw a survivor. I saw a man they couldn't destroy. And I smiled. Not for them. For me. Like, comment and subscribe if you felt that. Because sometimes the family that leaves you, is the one that sets you free.